Okay, so I am here to talk about this book by Ned Blackhawk. It is called The Rediscovery of America. This is my textbook for my Introduction to Native American Studies class. And I'll start off by saying that this author really nailed this title. Only a few chapters into this book, and already I am rediscovering the America that I thought I knew basically my entire life. It's really crazy to learn how much actually started before Christopher Columbus. Everyone learned the little rhyme, something something in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Yeah, he did do that. He wasn't the first person to make contact with the natives, though. The Spanish were. And the American Revolution that we know was not the first American Revolution. The Pueblo Revolt of 1680. Blackhawk essentially calls it the first American Revolution and recast Spanish Pueblo relations with far-reaching consequences across the continent. The revolt followed decades of growing repression of Pueblo leaders and those who continued to maintain Pueblo ceremonial and spiritual practices. In spite of endless punishments, hangings, beatings, enslavement, imprisonment, the Spanish failed to break the cultural practices of the Pueblo. This revolt, this revolution, lasted for about a week. It was a week-long war, and the Spanish were not expecting what they were met with. Obviously, we know that it didn't end well for the Native Americans, solely based off of the number of Native Americans left in the world. Some things that I found just really jarring. Some of the numbers here. I mean, like, growing up, we learned about the Trail of Tears, obviously, and how horrific that was. But that really just scratches the surface to the oppression and the brutality that Native Americans faced for centuries. One quote stood out to me. Of the 3 million inhabitants of Hispaniola at the time of Columbus's arrival in 1493, only 500 remained 50 years later. The Spanish conquest was simultaneously a Holocaust. It's heavy, and yeah, hearing it referred to as a Holocaust, I mean, it kind of baffles my mind that we haven't called it that before, because it 100% was mass genocide against an entire population. And to hear those numbers, from 3 million to 500 in 50 years. As hard and as heartbreaking as this stuff is to read, I do value this knowledge. Growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood, in a rural area, surrounded by white people, we got the whitewashed version of history. We got the defiance of the Americans to stand up to Great Britain. What about the defiance of the Native Americans who were pushed from their lands, who were brutally beaten, raped, sold as slaves, taken advantage of, taken for everything that they had? And the fact that, like, no matter what the white people or the Spanish or the French, no matter what any of the colonialists did, they didn't break them. And I find that really, really powerful. And it just goes to show, like, how strong and underrepresented these people are. I mean, they're right up there with Holocaust survivors, and we don't treat them as such. And I think that's really messed up. And as hard as it is to read this book and rediscover the America that I thought I knew, it's a task that I'm up for. It's important. It's important that we start having these conversations and start truly understanding our history. I mean, that's the only chance that we have at, ending this cycle of oppression and slander and lies. It's the only chance that we have to actually teach our next generation the truth about what actually happened on these lands and how they were earned. More like how they were taken. But yeah, stay tuned for more discoveries from the Rediscovery of America.